वेलकम टू मेन स्ट्रीम विद हरप्रीत सिंह तूर। आप सब नूं प्यार भरी सत श्री अकाल, नमस्कार, आदाब एंड शलोम। एक बारी फिर जिन्होंने पिछली बारी शो नहीं देखा उन्होंने 2023 दियां लख लख बधाइयां। क्रिश्चियन कैलेंडर वो भी दो कैलेंडर होंगे आ, एक हैगा जिहड़ा कि ऑर्थोडॉक्स क्रिश्चियंस का, एक कैथलिक्स का ते प्रोटेस्टेंट्स का। कैथलिक प्रोटेस्टेंट्स का जिहड़ा नवा साल सी वो सी 1 जनवरी तो, पर जिहड़े दूजे हैगे आ जिहड़े ऑर्थोडॉक्स क्रिश्चियनिटी आ जिहड़ी कि ईस्टर्न नॉर्थ ईस्ट दे विच हैगी आ, रशिया, यूक्रेन इज़ आल्सो पार्ट ऑफ दैट, पर यूक्रेन ऐतकी बिकॉज ऑफ द वॉर बाय रशिया उस ब्रांच तो क्रिश्चियनिटी तो टुट के वो जिहड़ी प्रोटेस्टेंट ते कैथलिक्स वाली उहदे नाल ज्वाइन कीते हैगे आ। सो 7 जनवरी नूं अगेन कुछ एक जिहड़े क्रिश्चियन हैगे आ उन्होंने अपना सैलीब्रेट की हैगी क्रिसमस ते द वे दे सैलीब्रेटेड उन्होंने इस चीज़ की बधाई। और इस दे नाल नाल ही जिवें कि असीं देखिया स्पीकर की इलैक्शन जिहड़ी हुई हैगी आ, केविन मैकार्थी फाइनली ही बिकेम ए स्पीकर, पर उहदी की उहनूं कॉस्ट पे करनी पई आ, उहदे अगे की सिट्टे निकल सकते, हाउ इट कैन अफेक्ट एवरीथिंग। वी नीड टू डिस्कस दैट and I'm going to discuss that. Like I always say, you should be getting in touch, sending out an email to me at hstour@outlook.com, because the thing is, before I do that, there is some parallel things going on. We have been watching for last couple of years that there is a steady move from being pro-democratic setup to more like dictatorial attitude. It's nothing new, but what has changed is that the immunity of us who think about these things, and then we, based on that, we make some decisions. Let me give you a recent example. What happened in Brazil was actually that same thing what happened here in Washington DC. The only difference is that in Brazil they have already arrested more than 1,200 people. They have arrested 2 of the main people, one from the army, one from the security, and the whole purpose was that what could happen that somehow the army will get involved and they will start the junta, like they call it in these countries, that they will start ruling again, and probably they will make some difference or whatever their thoughts were or whatever they were thinking. Now the question comes in based on all these things, based on the media, that there are people like Michael Flynn, who was actually basically he was made to resign from US Army. He worked for a very short time as a security advisor to the former President Donald Trump till Mike Pence, the Vice President, found out that Michael Flynn lied to Vice President to get the position, and he ended up resigning. But right now he is going around in the United States and he is creating a new following where those people, he's going to the churches, he's going to the places of worship, he's going to the open places where in the name of Christ they are doing the things. See, in this country, when I came actually, when we really look at it, what was happening was it was more like a neutral country. Yes, it is a Catholic country. About 90% plus population is Christian in this country, and somehow this idea of this country is being overrun by non-Christians has created this backlash. And how it started, it actually started, it's not new, it started way back. There were always fringe benefits. If we can go back to Iran-Contra during Ronald Reagan, I think that was also one of the step for where we are today, because Iran-Contra was something where the weapons were sold, and the income from the weapons, it was used in Nicaragua. And the person who was in charge of this whole project, he was in front of the Congress, he talked about it, and later on he went out and he started his own tour and his own special, if I may say, shows on the TV channels. And that was like one of those things. And then we had the election where George W. Bush became the president, and vice president with Bill Clinton, Al Gore, he lost, and he lost only by about 500 votes in Florida. The difference was Al Gore, even though he knew that what happened was it was the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court at that time, Rehnquist, who actually wrote the judgment and made George W. Bush the president, but he also wrote that this should not be taken as a precedent. But then again, there are always people who look for those things, those straws to hang on to. And when President George W. Bush, he went into Iraq instead of going into Afghanistan after 9/11, that itself was creation of another layer. And then what happened was President Obama came into the picture. He became the president because he was of African American plus Caucasian heritage, even though he was a Christian. But his name Barack Hussein Obama. So that was something which was used to weaponize the extreme elements. And former President Donald Trump was sorry, for that wrong name. Former President Donald Trump used that also as a tool to start discrimination and other things like that. So, but the Tea Party of 2010, which was basically, like telling that, okay, deficit, control the deficit, we are spending too much, this and that. And we had, at that time, a real big backlash where not only that the President Obama lost the Congress, but also the Senate. And Mitch McConnell at that time said from the floor in one of the interview right in Congress that his first and foremost aim is to make Obama as one-term president. Okay, so now fast forward that to the election of Donald Trump as a president. There was a backlash against President Obama becoming a president, a non-white, even though he was a Christian, but with that name, which sounds like more like a non-Christian, non-familiar name, becoming the president. So with that thing, Donald Trump came in as a president of United States, and he, even at that time, was not condemning the people who were extremists. And then in Virginia, when people were run over by those white supremacists, he was like, the fault lies on both sides. So he literally was like not saying what is wrong is wrong. And going fast forward, 2020 election happened, and Donald Trump lost the election, and we know what happened on January 6th of 2021 before the current president, Joe Biden, he took over the office. And those are the similarities of the extreme elements in the society where the then president, Donald Trump, asked the security to remove the metal detectors, magnetometers like they call them, because people were coming in with the guns and ammunition, because he wanted them to storm the Capitol. And he also said that they are not here to harm me, which means he knew that they are there on either his command or somebody who was really close to him and who was actually monitoring what's going on. And things like that. So when we look at that, from that perspective, when we are going through all these process and we look at it and we try to put the pieces together, then there is a break. There is a difference between executive, the Congress, and judiciary. So it was a mix of that. So we have to look at all these things when we try to conclude something or come to some conclusion. So we are going to continue discuss these things, including what is happening right now with the new speaker right after the break. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. We're talking about that how we are slowly moving toward dictatorships, extremism. So Tea Party happened, Obama became president, and then Donald Trump came in as a president after the former President Obama. And while he was in the White House, he actually terminated the services of a lot of people just by tweeting at the middle of the night or early in the morning that he is fired. That's it. And he tried to weaponize a couple of the departments also by putting in the people who were more like yes men. And there came a point when after the election, when he found out that he lost the election, even his own kids were telling him he lost the election, including Melania Trump, his wife, was telling him that he did lose the election fair and square. Bill Barr, who protected him for everything which he was not supposed to be protected, but Bill Barr did it. He also told him that he lost the election, and literally Donald Trump told him, "You are fired." And he said, "Okay, thanks for the services." And he left, and while he was leaving, before he went all the way out of the White House, somebody called him from behind and told him that, "No, you're not fired, okay, so keep it here." Even though later on he ended up resigning, and whatever is happening, he's talking about it. He's talking against those January 6 happenings. But now the new Congress, 118th Congress, is in. Let us look at those 20 people, some extremists, if I may say, or right-wingers, like they say in the media. The difference between the Tea Party, when Tea Party came in, everybody was, what the hell is happening? Now, as we look here today, and we look at what was Tea Party doing, that looks like a piece of cake. That was nothing. But there is one more thing which is more when they go to the camera, which is to me ridiculous, that when they were in power, they raised the credit limit for the United States to pay the bill 3 times during the 4 years of Donald Trump's presidency. But now they are saying we are not going to do until and unless there are equal cuts. They did same thing during President Obama, but not during George W. Bush. So what I'm saying is, whenever Republicans are holding the control of the Congress, they complain about deficit and interest being paid and this and that. But when they are controlling everything, they were controlling all three branches in 2017 and 18. There were no complaints about it. And the biggest rise in the deficit happened during those years. Yes, it happened after that also, it was happening before that also. I'm not saying that. Like, I will definitely discuss, because some of the people who are watching the show, they are going to say, hey, he always talks about, that Mar-a-Lago, search and everything on the documents which they found with the Trump, but he's not talking about what happened with the Joe Biden. Yes, I'm going to talk about that also, because it just came out in the public. But before the end of the show, I will talk about that. But let's stay where we are. Now, Kevin McCarthy, to get the gavel into his hand to be the speaker, the concessions which he gave to those extreme elements. Any one member can force a motion to vacate, which means one person, just one person from one of the elected rep can say, bring up the no confidence motion against the speaker, in this case against Kevin McCarthy, and he will have to go through the same process again to save his speakership. Which means basically what? That any one person can hold, sort of like holding a gun to your head and demanding that it's either my way or the highway. Second thing, those extreme elements, those elements are actually the elements which are now on the committees, which are very important positions, whether those are defense committees, internal committees, where the top secret information is discussed and given out, and they can look at that. Then it also has made, like I just talked about, spending, that they are going to be demanding the cuts in the budget. They are already talking about it. Okay? And they are talking about what? The cuts on IRS. Yes, we don't like paying the taxes. Nobody likes paying the taxes. But when we really look at it, what happens? You and I pay the taxes. The millionaire and billionaires, they don't. And when Republicans talk about to cut the workforce in IRS, who walks away without paying the taxes? The millionaires and billionaires, not you and me. Now, finally, the tax returns for the former President Donald Trump are out, and we can literally see how much he paid as taxes during his presidency. And not only that, IRS is mandated to audit the president and vice president's tax returns while they are president and vice president. They did not do it in 2017 and 2018. And those are the issues which we don't understand. We don't look at it. We are working, every time we end up paying extra taxes, we work more hard to get it done and hard to have the things in the gear so that we can keep our head above the water. But these people who don't pay any taxes, they are becoming gazillionaire from trillionaire, but they don't pay any taxes. And finally, if there was some rules and regulations being established where that somebody may be able to audit someone, now Republicans are saying that nope, we will not give the money to IRS to train who? The people who are retiring from IRS. Forget about increasing the number of IRS agents. When you make a call to IRS, what happens? You're on the phone for about an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and then all of a sudden it gets disconnected. So you who genuinely have genuine complaint cannot complain or cannot sort your taxes out because there is nobody on the other end. But if there is a move to get somebody on the other end, now all of a sudden they are like, nope, we will not let it happen. Why? Because our buddies who are millionaire and billionaire, they don't want it to happen. So that's another thing. And they also are saying that they will present a balanced budget which will be balanced over 10 years. That's what they talked about when Obama was the president. And before that, Bill Clinton was the president. Bill Clinton actually was the only president who brought a budget and created the budget surplus. It was during George W. Bush's duration that the first tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires was given to such an extent in the name of depression that the economy is going to go into recession, and to resist or not to have the economy go into recession, give the tax break to millionaires and billionaires. I will give you one more example. After President Donald Trump became the president, they gave close to about $700 million to one of the company in Indianapolis to keep the jobs in Indianapolis in USA. The company took the money, but the jobs were still shifted to Mexico. Nobody talks about that because those things don't help. Who? The elected. Because I always say that their first job, once they get elected, their first priority is to get re-elected. Remember that. And that's what it is. And that is why what happens is that you and I, who we don't read the papers here, or we are more interested in our politics back home, what is happening there, we lose all of these things and we have no idea what is happening. That is another issue which we need to be very careful about, that how the things happen. What is happening here? What could happen, because we will have election in 2024. Right now we don't know what's going to happen in 2024. But at the same time, during the next 2 years, the new Congress, not the senators, but the House of Representatives, what they will do, that is something which we have to watch out. Let's take a break. After the break, we'll talk further on that. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. So we were talking about all these things happening, going on in Washington, D.C. and how they can affect us. But before they can affect us, we also have to look at some other things which are happening or which have happened. One of the things which happened after the election, when the President Donald Trump, he literally ordered on January 6th to hang Mike Pence, because a parallel electoral votes were created so that those parallel illegal electorals can stop from Joe Biden becoming the president, and the sitting president at that time, Donald Trump, can stay in power. Doesn't matter which way. So during the last 2 years, there were few things which happened in bipartisan understanding between the Republicans and Democrats. One of the things was Electoral Count Act. What is Electoral Count Act? Basically, the U.S. Constitution and the states have that the president, the candidate who wins the most vote in a state, will get all the electoral votes of that state. That's why sometime, not sometime, it has been happening since about 2000, even though Al Gore got more votes nationally, but George W. Bush became the president based on electoral votes. Same thing happened when the former president Donald Trump became the president, even though Hillary Clinton got more votes, but Donald Trump got more electoral votes based on the states, the number of states which he won. 2020, Joe Biden actually did get more votes as well as electoral votes, but still he refused to accept that as a genuine election. The frauds took place, and same thing in Arizona, like Carrie Lake is complaining about losing her election, and she is complaining about Maricopa County, without mentioning that in Maricopa County they did ninja audit, and in that ninja audit, which was actually a private company hired by the Republicans, which was over and above the rules and regulations and everything, at the end of their counting, they did not find a single vote which could have gone otherwise to make a change in the results of that state from 2020 election. So it was a joke. So now Carrie Lake is carrying it forward based on her assumption is that Donald Trump again will be a Republican candidate, and she can piggyback on his tail to further a better thing. So how does it affect us? It does definitely affect us, our next generation coming up, because by creating uncertainty on anything, you are creating a chaos. Once a chaos is created, minorities are the first target of any chaos, and that's what the issue is. We were talking about electoral count, except Maine and Nebraska. They are the two states where they divide the electoral votes, which means they just don't give the votes to the person who got the maximum votes. Based on the percentage, how much extra he got, they divide it. Maine has two, they do one, divide one each, and Nebraska also, I think, has something like that. Something about same thing, because they do not have what they call winner take all in those states. So their votes are divided into the winner, and one electoral vote is awarded to the popular vote winner each congressional district, and which means that Maine has 2 congressional districts and Nebraska has 3. So if in Maine one person wins one congressional district, not the other one, then one electoral vote goes to one person, the other one, let us say Democrat won the other one, Republicans won the other one, then it gets divided like that. In Nebraska, it will be same thing. So out of 3, all 3 can go to one candidate, or 2 can go to one candidate and 1 to one candidate, or if there are 3 candidates, they can go to 3 different people. So they have fixed that to some extent, that law, electoral law, that the job of the vice president is to just to count that, number 1. Number 2, if somebody has to object, it has to be a minimum of 20 legislators, congresspersons, at least, to object to the counting of the votes. 1/5 of both the houses and the Senate. So which means out of 435, 20 and about 22 in House, and about in the Senate, it will be 5. So that the minimum number, if you want to contest, that you have in the Senate, you have to have 5 senators, and in the House of Representatives, you have to have about 22. I'm just doing the calculation in my mind when I'm doing that. So that they have cleared some things, but still there are issues to be resolved, and we'll discuss when we reach there. But now moving forward to, I was talking about bipartisanship, that how some of the things happen and could happen. I think we were discussing a few things in one of the, when I did a Mudda last week, that there is a possibility that the Republicans may reach out to the Democrats for certain things. And there still is a possibility because Kevin McCarthy is somebody who can be blocked from doing anything by any one Republican and a Democrat, anybody, to just move a motion of no confidence. And I just wonder how many times we will see it. I have no idea. We may not see it, but we may see it a couple of times, maybe more than a couple of times. We'll see how the next 2 years shape up and how the things go. But there is one thing which is very important, that Republicans, they have always targeted Social Security and Medicare as they call it entitlements. It is not entitlement because we contribute to Social Security. Before us, the other people who came in and worked, they contributed to Social Security, and it is a retirement system which is created. And somehow by naming it as entitlement, they are making it that I, Harpreet Singh Toor, is entitled by the government of United States to get X amount of dollars every month. No, I'm not. I have contributed to the Social Security, and I'm just getting based on whatever the contributions I have done. When I get my Social Security, it will be based on that. And the people before that, and whatever my contribution is, it's going to go further down. Same thing with the Medicare, the doctors and others. That's another thing. They call it entitlement. It's not entitlement. Same way, like I said, whenever they are not in the White House, they talk about controlling the expenses. But when they have the White House and the Senate and the House, they never cared about it. So it is all how they project it and show it to the people. And I personally believe that their assumption is the people who are listening to it, if they don't raise the question, there are 2 reasons. Number 1, either they don't care. Number 2, they assume that they are not smart enough to figure it out, that who is saying what and who is lying and who is not lying. Because when people go into vote, you just vote based on your party line, that okay, I'm a Republican, I'm going to vote for Republicans only. I'm a Democrat, I'm going to vote only for Democrat. There was a time when there's still places where there are people who are Democrat and Republican in the same family, including me. You're looking at somebody who has Republicans in the family. But we don't discuss politics. When we do, we agree to disagree, and we try to move on. Why? Because politics is important, but not that important that you should be breaking the relationship within your family about all that. So we are going to go for a break. After the break, we are going to talk about that documents which they found at one of the place where Joe Biden was involved, and his office, and how it is being handled, and what's the difference between what happened at Mar-a-Lago and what happened where they found these documents. Right after the break. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. Like I said at the beginning of the show or in the middle of the show, that I'm going to talk about the documents which were found in the possession of Joe Biden's one of the place where he was he had his office and he was working on, or that part where they found it. I will have more details in next show, and then definitely I will talk about it. But there is one thing which I want to share with you, and this is something which I am repeating. Karl Rove, who is a Republican strategist, and he is one of the best person. Like I always say, Mitch McConnell, I love him, but I don't like his policies. Same thing with Karl Rove. Okay, he's a Republican. He's really good at it. And on Fox News, which we know is like, CNN and MSNBC, they are considered pro-Democrat, and Fox is way, way, way Republican. On Fox News, he was asked this question and he compared both. I'm repeating what he said. The differences between the Trump's behavior and so far the Joe Biden's behavior. Trump, they were asking for the documents for more than a year and a half. It was not happening. When it happened, they did it quietly when Trump was not even at Mar-a-Lago, but it was him who himself broke the news. And then he claimed, being the president, he has the right and he can just think of any document to declassify, and it is declassified. You can think that you are on the moon, it doesn't mean you are on the moon. Now the difference between Joe Biden's, what is happening, and again I'm repeating what Karl Rove said, that Joe Biden, as soon as they found out, they were handed over, they were under secured, they were not lying on the floor or just lying around where anybody can walk in and look at it. Not only that, they have already, the Department of Justice has already appointed somebody from an appointee of Donald Trump who is going to investigate that how those classified documents ended up where they ended up. And now, before the end of the show, I just want to share with you that House just approved a measure brought up by Jim Jordan, who was at the forefront to keep the former President Donald Trump as a president, and who did not condemn the January 6 attacks and did not say anything about all those protesters. Before I talk about this, let me ask something. Ask yourself something. Had it not been those white supremacists, had it been somebody else, like somebody like me, or African American, or Hispanics, just imagine what could have happened over there had that number of people there. I'm pretty sure that there would have been literally a bloodbath with the cops firing and at least killing some of them, if not all of them. Okay, so what he did was actually they created a select committee based on, again, party line. 221 Republicans voted to create it, 211 Democrats against it. Okay, even though Jim Jordan is saying that he wants to investigate that investigative agencies, the FBI and Department of Justice, they are targeting the parents and everybody at the school level. So for me, the question is 2024 or maybe 2026, the Republicans may come out with something like, oh, they are looking at your checkbooks, who you write the check to, why you write the check to. So there is that's the danger of weaponization of the government in the name of the first 10 amendments, the right of freedom, right to talk, and everything. Like they have taken the second amendment to extreme, they may take the first amendment to extreme also. So let us see. We will definitely talk about it as we go along. So with that note, till next time, good night, good luck.